So I'm sure some of you are out there and are wondering, what is this project I've just been handed? There's all these parts to it. I don't understand them. I haven't used Eclipse. So in this video, I'm going to go over a little bit about the different things that you're going to find in your project, and how to run things in Eclipse, and some simple things like that to help you out a little bit. So first off, the main program, the one that runs most of this, is the driver, and you have pretty much the complete driver, right? So to run the driver, you notice it says right here in the usage, which one of the things you want to do is just look around in the project, poke around. What are in the classes that I have? What are in the data files? What are in the command files? But first off, we're going to do a simple run of the driver, right? And you say run. And it says down here, you can see it's giving us the usage message, which means it didn't run anything, right? It was like, okay. So now what we want to do is we want to look at the run configuration for driver. This is due to my use of a gigantic font. But here we see the main class driver. And what I need to do is in here, I need to add some arguments. So the arguments I need are the command, is some sort of command file. So I have to give it a command file. And then I could also give it optionally, if you notice this, optionally I could give it output row. Let's do this. Oops, in the wrong spot. My bad. And then I want to do, it's command 2. I'm doing this from memory, so it might not be right. Let's see. All right. So let's go back and look so you can get another look at that. So if you look at the arguments, I gave it the location of the command texts that I want to run. That is the queries I want to run. I also optionally gave it the output row. White space is actually ignored, so it actually dropped all that. But so, and if I remove this, if I were to remove this, then the rows themselves will not show up. Which, depending on what you're doing, you may or not need to see the rows. The count may be sufficient. You know, you may not need. You might just be concerned about the actual timings, which is fine. You may have already tested the output, and you would have said, hey, that's fine. I don't need to know what the rows are. And if it's like 50 or 100 rows, it might make it difficult to read the output you're interested in. So that's why you have that ability to turn it on and off. So if we turn this on and run again, we will see that instead of the rows being included, they are not. They are not. All right? So that's the basics of running the driver program. Now, let's take a look at some of the other things we have here. So as you know, hopefully you've already created your database reader file, which basically implements the database search, right? We stubbed it out. We had Eclipse create a stubbed out version for us. And just because you only have certain ones in the interface doesn't mean you shouldn't create other ones, potentially private ones that are utilized. So, okay. So the package info, you don't really have to worry about. The timing is the class used to help produce these okay metrics for how well it performs. And the driver, of course, is a program that runs it. So these are the source files, and again, most of the time you're going to be working with a database reader. That's where you're going to do a lot of your work. Okay. Then we have, so this is in one package. It kind of package just separates out and groups things logically together, right? Creates useful namespaces. And then in the test, we have all our test files, and you can see this is a hint. Here's the naive buff search, but you're going to want binary search, and so you're going to want you were given all the naive search ones, and you probably should duplicate that for both binary and naive buff. So, so this is basically, these are all tests, and to run the test, I kind of showed you, you could do something like this, click on this and hit run. And we want to run them as JUnit tests, right? See, I'm getting failures on these column tests that aren't done yet. If you want to go look to see which one failed. There you go. Not implemented. So it's not done yet. Which, that's exactly what you have in your project, and eventually you want to replace those with actual tests. Okay, so that's where your JUnit test will reside. I believe if you want to do an individual test, you can do that too. Yeah. So if you wanted to do an individual one, you can do them one at a time. Okay. So then this is just the associated. This is a library, and this is in your build path to get to those binary files. This is where and you don't have to put them here, but this is where I put the command files. I created a directory so I could put them all together. And if we look at commands 2, we can see this is what it's got in it. But basically, as you create searches, you can have different command files to help you look at what you're trying to work on right then, right? You can have lots of different things, right? And if you recall, this is the search column I'm searching for. The columns start at 1. What I'm searching to, how many times to repeat the search, which is optional, right? I can just do it once if I want. This was just there to make it a little easier for you to do your timings. All right, so basically that's all that's in there is some example command files, and you can create your own based on that format to help you play around with it and test your code. Then you have your database files, different types of files. So one of the things that might happen is you're interested in testing a specific thing, or you create a test. You can copy some of these over. You want to look maybe large orders. You can copy one over and make some alterations to it. Like you want to see if it can find first comment 2, and so you change it. Recognize that if like large orders is being used by the test that you've already been given, so if you change it, you may impact the tests negatively. So if I changed first comment here, I believe it would some of my tests would start to fail. So recognize there are 2 things that can make tests fail. One is you've altered data, and 2 is that the code itself isn't working. So there's more than that too. But for us right now, those 2 basic things could occur. So you could be like, oh, my tests were working fine, and then you change the data and you forget. So you want to be cautious that you know which ones are being used. So if we want to know which ones are being used, come back here to naive search equals, and you can look. Right, equals. So in here, is it using the And the answer is you don't know, do you? Why not? Because where is it? It's here. Okay. So now this utility, which is not actually a test, a tester, it's a utility function for the testers. So I come over here and you can see this is the file that's being used by this test query method. So, you know, I would stay away from changing that one too much because it could negatively impact your other. Now, so what that means is, one, you could at some point decide you want to change this to take also a database name. So you could have this test query take a database name, or just create another version of it, test query, that takes database name. So you could, you know, overload it with a second method. That will be fine. If you want to use a different database, that's okay. But you can see that the thing it's doing here is testing that load. Now, one thing you'll notice is this is binary buff load. It turns out that this both sets the name, so you can do naive searches, and it also converts it. So actually, if you run a binary buff load or a binary load, it can actually do either one of the searches. If you do a naive load, it can't do binary searches because it hasn't converted the file. All right. So what else we got? Oh, we have the documentation, which I hope you generated. I know that some of you didn't. You probably should. It will make your life easier when you go to try to figure out some of these classes. So there's a general overview and how to run tests and run the main. Hopefully that'll give you an idea of where to start. And again, I also hope that you have created your initial class database reader and, you know, started to add the first method and that sort of thing. So that's a general overview of the parts of the project. And feel free to ask questions. And that's it for this video.